Crime, Wine, and Chaos contains adult language and graphic content. Listener discretion is advised.
Ghosts are the unseen guests at every gathering. Chaos Kids, I'm Naomi.
Spooky. I'm Amber, and this is Crime, Wine, and Chaos.
Spooky ooky because it's seasons.
It is spooky season. I don't know that reference, though.
It's just there's no reference. It's just a saying.
Stop woman handling your mic.
I'm so sorry. I was thinking about that too before I jumped in. I was like, I gotta stop touching the mic.
Maybe you need a fidget toy. Well, no, that would be bad too. You need something too. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sit on a hippity hop while we record.
just sit on my hands.
Yes.
The whole time. Don't. Do you know how much I need my hands to talk, though?
I know. Samesies. Hello, sister.
Hi, sis. What's going on? What's up with you?
Not a whole lot. I helped my son and his wife move into it's their first time in a home rather than
instead of an apartment.
Yeah, and it's so cute, so spacious.
Is it far from where they were before?
No, it's pretty close. Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah, so that's really exciting. I'm doing that again this weekend, helping.
Oh, we're not done.
I don't know how he's accumulated so many things in his short time on this earth, but my God.
Did nobody tell them that that moving is the best time to purge things from your life?
Yeah. I mean, he might have. That might be after the purge.
Post-purge?
Yeah, it might be. I wouldn't be surprised.
No.
So anyway, I'm doing that, which has been fun just to get extra time with them. Yeah.
That's great. And extra time with the new baby. You mean.
She's so sweet. What a cutie pie. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. What about you? What's new?
Oh, it's been an interesting week. We were talking about it before we jumped on the pod, and I'm not going to say anything too, specific, but it's been an interesting week. And it's like, the arc of justice is long, but or the arc of history is long, but bends towards justice, whatever that saying is.
The wheels of justice turn slowly.
Sometimes they turn very slowly.
That's what Judge Fair used to say.
And revenge is a dish best served cold. And that's, and I didn't even have to serve it. So that makes it even better.
That's just karma correction.
That's right. It's just the universe course correcting. Exactly.
Yep.
That's what's going on with me pretty much.
Wonderful.
That's the long and the short of it. Yeah. What are you drinking?
I'm just sticking with water. I'm still on my journey of, I'm still on my journey of
we're all on our journey
putting better things into my body. Although I do plan on drinking some wine this weekend. We'll see. I mean, that could go to hell in a handbasket real quick. So
just be careful. Just little baby steps.
Woo!
Start slow.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Oh, well, sister, do we have anything for the good of the order?
We do not.
Okay. Well,
Not this
then tell me a story.
I've got a crime for you.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Feeling.
I know. I am going to tell you about Nancy Woodrum.
Okay.
So we are going to May 5th, 2018 in Paso Robles, California, which is about halfway between LA and San Francisco along the 101.
Okay. Paso Robles?
Yep.
I'm just guessing. It might be Robles. I don't know.
Robles, Reble, tomato,
Syllable.
Oh my God. You put the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable. Okay. So it's a small city known for its wineries. Love it already.
Okay. But we've done a winery story before and it was bad.
This is not a winery story. It just happens to be
in wine country.
A part of this city. She had lived there for a while. She lived on a sprawling property known as Paradise Ranch.
Sounds lovely.
Mm-hmm. It was on this Saturday morning when Amanda Peel, Nancy's daughter, got a call from one of Nancy's friends saying that she had plans with her mom that morning, but she never showed up and she couldn't get a hold of her and she was concerned.
Oh. Mm-hmm. Does Amanda live with her mom on this sprawling ranch?
No, she lives nearby though.
Okay.
So Amanda knew that this was not like her mom, so she kind of goes right into panic mode. And after several failed attempts to reach her, Amanda and her husband, Aaron, decide to make the short drive over to her mom's house.
Okay.
So her mom's property is 6 acres. And
Decent.
yeah, and she lived there alone since her husband passed away. So there was like a big farmhouse that she rented out as like a B&B.
Okay.
She would also host like weddings and other large events on the property. And then she had like a little cottage that she referred to as her studio that she lived in.
Oh, sure.
Mm-hmm. But her mom always said that she felt very safe there, even though she was out on this huge piece of land by herself.
No partner or anything.
No. Mm-mm.
Just her.
No,
doing
yeah,
all
and
of it.
she tends to it entirely by herself.
Wow.
I know.
Okay.
She's a badass.
How old is Nancy at this point?
She's in her very early 60s.
Okay.
So Amanda and her husband get to the house and they become even more concerned. The front door is open, all the lights are on, and the TV is like blaring.
Oh, no.
Mm-hmm. When they do just a cursory look inside the house, they see a red stain on the carpet in the bedroom. And so they call 911. I know. As they are waiting for the police to arrive, Amanda and Aaron continue to look around the house and they see that Nancy's purse and cell phone, along with her keys, are still inside. I know, not good. So when detectives arrive, they see that not only was there blood on the carpet next to her bed, but there was also blood on the mattress, blood spatter on the wall, and one of her pillows had a bloody handprint.
Oh, no.
I know, it's like spooky.
I do not like a bloody handprint.
I do not like a bloody handprint.
This is
I
bad.
personally love them. Just kidding. So it wasn't enough blood to indicate like loss of life. So they're hopeful that Nancy is still alive somewhere.
Right.
They also noticed that her bedding was missing, like she had been wrapped up in it and carried out of the house, perhaps. That's never a good sign.
No. I
They
mean,
all-
nothing about this. There are no good signs in this scenario at this point.
Zero. They also see tire trucks on the property that appear to be from a pickup truck, which was not one of Nancy's vehicles, and they find a shoe print next to the tire tracks. About 5 miles from Nancy's home, they find bloody bedding and clothing on the road, just sort of strewn about, and Amanda was able to identify those items as belonging to her mom.
Just on the road?
On the road. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Nancy was well known and loved in the community. In addition to running Paradise Ranch, she was a local hairdresser.
Oh, God, this woman is Nancy's just doing all the things.
Nancy's a badass.
She tends to 6 acres, puts on weddings and other like events on her property, rents out a B&B, and does hairdressing
Right?
in town.
Right. Nancy's your one-stop shop.
Clearly.
You can get your hair did on the day of your wedding, be fed.
Yeah.
I mean, good God. So her daughter says she was incredibly strong and she had been through a lot in her life, but she always stayed positive. Tending to the ranch was a 24/7 job. She took care of everything by herself. Everything.
She didn't hire people to help her do anything?
Well, we'll get to that. Some
Okay.
things. Yeah. She doesn't
Okay.
have like animals. She might have a horse. She might be a horsey girl.
We do like the horsey girls.
We
on this
like
show.
we like a good horsey girl. So she recently decided that she wanted to spend more time with her grandkids. So a few weeks before she went missing, she decided that she was going to sell Paradise Ranch. And she did receive a conditional offer that hinged on some renovations that needed to happen first. And so that was her main focus.
Okay.
So forensics are done on the blood found at the crime scene, and all of it was Nancy's. There was no foreign blood mixed in at all.
Okay.
They were able to pull touch DNA from the bloody handprint on the pillow. And when they put this DNA profile into CODIS, there's no match.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm. At the time she went missing, she had guests who were using the property.
In the B&B?
Yeah. There were 20 people at the B&B. It's
Holy
like
shit, this just turned into an Agatha Christie novel. Nobody gets to leave.
That's
One of you's a murderer.
what happened. Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. And police are surprised to learn that nobody heard anything, right? Like nobody heard a thing. So they start talking to these folks and they learn that on the night that she went missing, they had first arrived around 6 p.m. and checked in. And they went to the rehearsal dinner that night and they didn't return until around 10.
Oh, so the rehearsal dinner was presumably somewhere
Somewhere
in town
else. It was at a local winery.
Ah.
Yep, there we are with the winery.
There it is.
They find out from Amanda that she received a text from her mom around 7:30. So that was the last time anyone heard from Nancy. The guests pieced out after checking in to go to the party, and that's it.
Sure.
So they got back around 10. They also learned from one of the guests who said that he did not go to the rehearsal dinner and instead he stayed behind. And then he also says that he had a conversation with Nancy while he had stayed behind. Like he was just visiting with her.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have a great explanation as to why he stayed behind, but he said that he just exchanged brief pleasantries with Nancy, like no big deal.
I mean, look, if we're talking about a wedding and we're talking about a rehearsal dinner, there's any number of reasons why somebody who felt obligated to be there decided, you know what? I do not want to hang out with you fuckers more than I have to. You know what I'm saying? What?
There's going to be so many people there. No one's going to notice my absence.
Well, not only that, but just like, I mean, weddings are those kind of obligatory events where you end up like stuck with people you don't normally like want to like choose to spend time with.
Sure.
You know?
Sure. Oh, I know. Although I do love weddings.
Don't get me wrong, I love a wedding, but
we're the family on The Wedding Singer that's like, well, I'm pretty sure everybody over there at table 9, and it's all like the, you know what I'm talking about? That's us. We're table 9.
Way too long since I've seen The Wedding Singer to know what that means, but I'm sure you're right.
It's all the singles that had nowhere else to be placed. Okay, so they are able to get a search warrant for this guest's DNA. They're also able to get phone records from Nancy's landline, and they see that at 12:17, so midnight, she made a made a 911 call that was disconnected manually. That's so scary.
Wait a minute. If there's a record of it, then it should have triggered 911 and somebody should have gone out there, right?
Well, that didn't happen. I don't know if it was manually disconnected before the dispatcher picked up. It was just on her phone records that she dialed it and it was
ringing, at least. It has to be ringing in order for it to be logged as a call that went out. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So it did connect to the line and start pinging.
Yeah. I wonder, I think it takes a few seconds after the dispatcher picks up for your address to populate.
Oh.
Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe.
But either way, that's really spooky.
Yeah.
So that also meant that all of the wedding guests were back in the main house when the attack happened.
Again, we have 20 people that could be
back to Agatha
suspects.
Christie.
Back to the and then there was one.
So they get the DNA results back from the one guest and it doesn't match the handprint.
Okay.
And then the guest's wife comes forward and says that he was at the rehearsal dinner, and she even shows the police a photo of the two of them at the rehearsal dinner. And it doesn't make any sense why he would lie and insert himself into the case like that, but he did. What are we doing? Like, if you really don't want to go to the wedding, like, this isn't the way. You know?
Make yourself a suspect so you get hauled down to the station.
Sorry,
I can't come. I got to do this interview.
Yep. Got to lawyer up. I might make the reception later.
What?
I don't know. What a weird thing to do.
What? People are so weird.
Yep. So he's eliminated as a suspect, but not before letting him know that he wasted like 2 to 3 days of their time by being a weirdo.
What?
Yeah. Like, thanks for that. So the road where the bedding and clothing was found leads out to the Carrizo Plains, which is a super desolate farming area. And so they're afraid that she's out there somewhere, but it is vast.
Right.
Mhm. Police then turned to contractors who were doing the required renovations at her ranch per her selling agreement.
Right. Right.
So there was a lot of people doing work on the property in the weeks before she disappeared. So they start to track down these workers. Most of them were in Nancy's phone. And they also found an unidentified number that was written down and taped to her iPad. So police call this number and they get a hold of this dude who is Carlos. And he says that he was painting the large wraparound deck at Nancy's house.
Uh-huh.
He said that his boss, who was the general contractor, had several disputes with Nancy about the work. And Amanda says that she even saw him like be angry and nasty with her mom when she was there, and they were like disputed like billing amounts.
Oh, I bet you he drives a truck and wears boots.
No one said anything about boots.
Oh, well, you said there was a
I love
shoe
it.
print.
And wears boots.
You said something about a shoe print next to the tire print. And in my mind, it was boots. I mean, we're out on a big piece of property.
It probably was. I love it so much. And he wears boots. That's it. Case closed, Neil. We solved it.
Done.
Dunzos. Oh my God. It's amazing. So when they run this contractor's name through their database, they see that he has an extensive criminal history.
Oh.
They bring him in for questioning, and he admits that he did have a bad rapport with Nancy, but he willingly gives them his DNA, and it is not a match.
Yeah, like I hated her, but I didn't kill her.
She owes me money. Can you find her?
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, it's a lot harder to get money from a dead person.
So several weeks go by. There's no movement on the case. And detectives are no longer hopeful that they will find Nancy alive.
Well, or find Nancy at all at this point.
I
Jesus.
know. In December of 2018, so it's been 7 months since
my God.
Nancy's gone missing, detectives start looking into a new form of phone tracking called geofencing. Have you heard of this?
Yes, I feel like we've talked about this. You've covered this before. I want to say on that case of the couple that was murdered down by the river.
Oh.
You remember that?
Yeah, that one was devastating.
That one was so awful. I feel like they used geofencing in that case.
Okay, well, I hate it. It's a little bit spooky, but it's a good tool, I guess, for investigating. So it allows law enforcement to see every cell phone in a specific area during a narrow window of time.
Right.
So Google assigns every cell number its own like unique identifying number, much like a fingerprint. There's not two that are the same. So they do a Google fence, which is a geofence, which is literally like drawing a little fence around the property on a Google map. And then it generates a report of any phone that was within those parameters during the time that they're requesting.
Right.
So this was the first time in California that this technology had been used. So they do Nancy's studio as well as the guest house for just after midnight, the night she was taken. And of course, the results come back with more than 20 cell phones because of the large group of people staying in the house.
Right.
So then they tighten up the search to just Nancy's studio. And when they did that, it came back with just 2 cell phones inside the house. Nancy's and an unknown. And it's like spooky. Like you can see it moving around similarly to like when you share your location with someone.
Yep.
It's just, so it's almost like watching
the movements of the murder or
the
kidnapping or whatever happened.
Yes. I hate it. So he was in there for about an hour. I know.
Well, it tells you everything you need to know.
Yep. And this phone number was linked back to 42-year-old Carlos Flores, who was the deck painter that they had already talked to, who pointed towards
his boss.
Yep.
Oh, Carlos.
Mm-hmm. So he's immediately placed under surveillance so that police could collect his DNA. He was followed to a restaurant and they were able to retrieve a Coke bottle that he threw away.
Mm-hmm.
And when the DNA was run, it comes back as a match. Fucking fuck. He had no criminal history and an excellent work history. Like, excellent.
Well, just because he didn't have a criminal history doesn't mean he's never done anything.
Oh, of course. He's just not been caught.
Right.
So they bring him in for questioning, hoping that they can get an answer as to where Nancy was. It takes a while, but as soon as he realizes that he's fucked, he starts talking.
Okay.
He says that Nancy was really friendly to him, even making him tamales for lunch. I know. She let him use her restroom, which gave him sort of the layout of her home. And he says that night he went into her house through the sliding glass door, knowing that she would be alone. As soon as she saw him, she grabbed the house phone to call 911, and he overpowered her and disconnected the call. I think that might actually be spookier, and or you would have to take a beat in confusion when you see somebody that you know, but they're not supposed to be there like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, the first inclination might be like, can I help you? Like, what are you doing?
Right.
You know?
Right.
Oh, it's so scary. He then raped her.
Yep.
And smothered her and killed her.
Where'd all the blood come from?
I'm not sure. He didn't say. He might have hit her a few times to sort of, but she was
control her or whatever.
Because because the smothering was definitely the pillow with the bloody handprint. Yeah.
Right.
He then wrapped her in her bedding, put her in his truck, and drove her out to the Carrizo Plains. He said that her clothing and bedding accidentally flew out of the bed of the truck.
That was my guess, actually, when you said it was on the side of the road.
Mm-hmm. He then went with law enforcement out to the plains to show them where to find Nancy. They drove about 40 miles away, and about 100 feet off of the road, they got to a circle of rocks, and that is where Nancy was. I know. In January 2022, Carlos Flores waived his right to a jury trial and was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. No real, just totally senseless.
Fucking random.
Yeah. Yes. God. And to have 20 people just a stone's throw away sleeping at your guest house.
Right?
Yeah. It's the part of her seeing him and trying to call 911 and him grabbing the phone that is just so spooky to me.
I'm caught on the, she was nice to him, gave him food, fed him lunch, let him in her house.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that was what, his invitation to rape and murder her?
I don't fucking know. I don't know.
Team Bear.
Team Bear.
Team Bear.
Mm-hmm.
Forever.
Mm-hmm. Oh, God.
Well, I hated that.
Thank you.
Really hated that. And, fuck, man.
I know.
Poor Nancy. She just wanted to spend time with her grandkids.
She was so close, too, to having a whole different life.
Yeah.
It's fucking awful.
She wasn't even going to stay there.
No. Mm-mm.
Okay, well, let's pivot to something different.
Do you have a palate cleanser?
Kinda.
Okay, great.
Kinda.
I'll look.
Sort of.
Oh.
It's different.
Okay.
Okay. So if you ask anyone in the United States currently between the ages of, say, late 30s to early 50s, young Gen X, older millennials, what movie they saw when they were way too young to be watching it that scarred them for life, what movie do you think they would say?
What movie do I think they would say?
What would you say?
Oh, I would say Candyman.
Oh, of
That's
course
my
you
bad
would.
one. I think most people might say like Friday the 13th
Really?
or yeah. I'm failing.
No, it's okay. For me
Uh-huh.
and a lot of people I know.
Oh, wait a minute. Can I have one more stab at it?
One more stab.
Stand By Me.
No.
Okay, fine. I could quit.
Poltergeist.
Oh my God. They're back. Mm-hmm.
So, for the whippersnappers, in case there are any whippersnappers listening, we're gonna get into Poltergeist.
Oh, good.
So, Poltergeist was a movie released into theaters in the U.S. in 1982, co-written and produced by Steven Spielberg, directed by Tobe Hooper, who was famous in his career for directing horror films, but most notably for directing the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh.
The story of Poltergeist focuses on the Freeling family. The parents are Steve and Diane. Steve is played by Craig T. Nelson.
Mm-hmm. Love him.
A lot of people know him as Coach
Yeah.
on the show.
Yep.
Coach.
Mm-hmm.
Diane is played by JoBeth Williams. She's one of those actresses where, like, if you see her, you recognize her.
Mm-hmm.
They had 3 children in the Freeling family. Teenage daughter Dana, who's played by Dominique Dunn. 8-year-old Robbie, played by Oliver Robbins. And 5-year-old Carol Ann, played by Heather O'Rourke.
Mm-hmm.
The movie starts out with the Freelings living their normal suburban lives in a normal housing development in Southern California. Husband Steve is a real estate agent and works for the company that built the all-American suburban neighborhood where he and his family reside. All is normal and fine. We only get an inkling that something may be off when we see little Carol Ann one night sleepwalking into the living room and then talking to the TV that has turned on by itself, but has no signal. It's just a screen of snow.
You know, creepy kids are my no-go zone.
I know. We're going in.
Oh God. Great.
Then the family's pet bird dies. Carol Ann talks to the snowy TV again, and something spectral comes out of the TV and goes into the living room wall, which causes a violent tremor through the house. The rest of the family wakes up, and this is when Carol Ann says probably one of the most famous movie lines of all time. They're here.
No, okay. All the hairs just stood up.
Then the activity in the house picks up. Drinking glasses break at breakfast, utensils bend themselves. When Diane asks Carol Ann who she meant when she said they're here, Carol Ann replies, the TV people.
Oh, fuck me. No.
At first, the harmless tricks being played on the family amuse Diane. The chairs at the kitchen table move around and stack on top of the table in the blink of an eye. Diane discovers an area in the kitchen where an unseen force will pull anything, including people, across the floor. Steve doesn't believe her until she demonstrates the phenomenon, to which he responds, nobody's going into the kitchen until I know what's happening.
Okay, Steve.
During a terrible thunderstorm, the tree outside of Robbie's bedroom window busts through the window and grabs Robbie out of his bed. But this is just a distraction to get Steve and Diane well away from Carol Ann. And while they're trying to rescue Robbie from the tree, Carol Ann gets sucked into her bedroom closet and disappears. The family scours the whole house and even the pit in the backyard where the new swimming pool is going to go, looking for Carol Ann, until Robbie hears her calling for her mom through the TV.
Nope.
So Steve calls in a small parapsychologist research team from UC Irvine to come help the family get Carol Ann back and figure out what the hell is going on. He takes them on a tour of the house, showing them the kids' room, where the toys and other objects are flying around the room by themselves and disembodied voices are laughing. The researchers are terrorized after staying overnight because they witness Diane have conversations with Carol Ann through the TV. They hear pounding footsteps from an unseen force that actually ends up injuring one of them, more moving objects, and one of them had a hallucination of ripping his own face off.
Oh.
So they leave to go get reinforcements and regroup.
Reinforcements.
Dana, the teenage daughter, she goes to stay with friends, and Diane and Steve send Robbie to his grandma's house. And this is the same day that Steve finds out from his boss that the development firm he works for has built many of their new housing developments on top of former cemeteries. When Steve says, "You can't do that, that's sacrilegious," his boss tells him it's totally fine. They've done it plenty of times. They just move the whole thing. Headstones, coffins, and all. No biggie. In fact, the neighborhood where Steve and his family lives sits on just such a spot. So the parapsychologists come back with a tiny medium in tow.
Oh, squeaky old lady from Teen Witch.
Zelda Rubinstein is her name in real life. And most of the rest of the movie is the insanity of saving Carol Ann from the clutches of an evil entity and a myriad of spirits that are all stuck from going into the light in some in-between place, the portal to which is through the kid's closet door. So Diane goes through the portal with a rope around her waist, finds Carol Ann, and exits the other dimension through the ceiling directly above the downstairs bathtub.
As one does. Yeah.
As one does. The medium has guided all the stuck spirits into the light and declares the house is clean. Steve and Diane decide they are not staying in that house, no matter what the fucking medium said. So the next time we see the family a day or two later, they're packing up and moving out with plans to stay there one last night. But the evil entity that wanted Carol Ann from the start, he never left. He didn't go into the light, and it's not going to let her go away this time. And that's when all hell breaks loose in the house. Robbie's clown doll comes to life and attacks him, pulling him under the bed, trying to strangle him.
That's right.
Which I would argue is actually the inception point for a lot of people's fear of clowns, not Pennywise.
Probably.
Pennywise didn't help, but this is where it started.
Mm-hmm.
Then the closet door opens up and tries to suck both the kids through. Diane hears this from her bedroom, but is blocked at every attempt to get to her kids and eventually is shoved down the stairs. So she runs out of the back of the house to try and find help, to go like to a neighbor's or something to get help. And she ends up falling into the pit where the swimming pool is supposed to go.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pouring down rain and the pit is full of thick, muddy water.
Mm-hmm.
And as she tries to escape, coffins begin popping up all around her from the muddy depths, busting open and dumping out skeletal corpses all over her and around her. And she's struggling to get out. Finally, the neighbors show up and help her out of the pool, but they are not going inside the house with her to help her save the kids because it's all lit up and glowing and it's got this ghostly energy and it's like just a fucking horror show. So she runs in, barely manages to pull Carol Ann and Robbie from being sucked into the portal in the closet. More coffins and bodies are exploding out of the ground and up into the house all over the place. And about this time, Steve rolls into the driveway, riding in a car with his boss. They see all these bodies erupting from the ground, and Steve screams at his boss, "You son of a bitch! You moved the cemetery, but you left the bodies, didn't you? You left the bodies and you only moved the headstones." And this is about the time that Dana shows up in her boyfriend's car, and she's very distraught at the sight that she's seeing. And Steve frantically piles the family into the station wagon and speeds away just as the entire house basically collapses and implodes into a portal into another dimension and disappears. And the very final scene of the film, the family is in a motel room, and Steve opens the door, shoves the TV on the rolling TV stand out onto the landing, and shuts the motel door.
That was a good recap.
The first Poltergeist film was made for just under $11 million and grossed over $120 million worldwide in 1982. That's like almost $400 million in 2024. And just to put it in perspective and what it was up against, that was the same year that Steven Spielberg also released E.T., which was the number one movie at the box office that year. And it brought in over $350 million, which is like more than $1.1 billion in 2024.
Fuck, man.
And Poltergeist was in the top 10. I mean, it was also competing with Tootsie, Rocky III, An Officer and a Gentleman, a Star Trek movie. All things considered, especially the fact that it was a horror film, it did really well. So, of course, sequels were inevitable. And some say so was a curse.
Mm-hmm.
It would be a few years after the first film was released that JoBeth Williams would claim publicly that she found out after the fact that all the skeletons they used during filming were real skeletons, not props.
Oh, God.
She says that she ran into a guy one day from the props department and made some comment about what a thing that they had made all those skeletons. There were so many. And he told her, oh, we didn't make those. Those were real.
Ew, God.
Back in the early 80s and before, apparently, real skeletons were cheaper than plastic ones, and it wasn't uncommon for real human remains to be used as props. But like the number of skeletons in this film,
Mm-hmm.
and everyone wondered, where did they come from? And were their spirits cool with being used like that?
No shit. I was going to say too, like, what family member was like, sure, take my deceased loved one as your movie prop? Like, where?
Right?
I bet there was some shady business. I bet it was like inmates that passed away.
Oh, I'm sure of it.
100%.
100%. It's also been reported that JoBeth and others had strange experiences while working on the franchise. JoBeth would often come home to find her paintings and wall hangings askew, and she would fix them and head off to set, and when she returned home, they would all be tilted again. JoBeth worried that something or someone was trying to warn her not to do this film. Similarly, James Caan, who wrote the film's promotional tie-in novel, experienced something strange while working on the book in Steven Spielberg's office. As he was writing about thunder and lightning, a thunder crash and lightning occurred right outside the window. The lights flickered, and the back of the air conditioning unit burst off and struck him from behind.
Oh my God.
After a few minutes, the lights flickered again, and all of the video games in the office started playing.
Mm-mm.
It was also reported that Dominique Dunn once witnessed a bookshelf tip and toss books across the room.
No.
But it would be Dominique Dunn's untimely demise, the actress that played the oldest daughter in the Freeling family, that would be big fuel for the growing suspicion that the Poltergeist franchise was cursed. Dominique was born and raised in Santa Monica, California. Her mom was a ranching heiress.
Oh.
And her dad was a writer, producer, actor type.
Mm-hmm.
She was the baby of the family. She had two older brothers, one of whom is also an actor. She also had a lot of family and close family friends in the biz. She attended Harvard Westlake School in LA, Taft School in Connecticut, and Fountain Valley School in Colorado. And after graduating, she spent a year in Italy studying art and learning Italian. She studied acting with a renowned stage actor and started various stage productions herself.
Mm-hmm.
By the time Poltergeist was released at the age of 22, Dominique had already had various recurring TV roles and was on her way to a good career as an actor in Hollywood.
Yeah.
A year prior, in 1981, Dominique met John Thomas Sweeney, a sous chef at a really swanky restaurant in LA. I can't remember the name of it. I didn't write it down, but I did read that it was like, it's the restaurant that gave like Wolfgang Puck his career.
Gotcha.
They met at some party. They dated for a few weeks, and then they moved in together into a small one-bedroom house in West Hollywood. The relationship deteriorated really quickly, mostly because John was a piece of shit and was physically abusive to Dominique. In late August of 1982, just a couple months after release of the film, Dominique showed up at her mom's house fleeing from John, who had yanked handfuls of her hair out by the roots.
Oh.
He showed up at her mom's, pounding on the doors and windows, demanding to be let in, and Dominique's mom told him to leave or she was going to call the cops. And a couple days later, Dominique went back home and back to the relationship.
Oh, gosh.
About a month later, at the end of September, they had another fight, and John threw Dominique to the ground and started strangling her. A friend staying with them at the time heard loud gagging sounds and came running out. And Dominique told the friend that John was trying to kill her. But John said that wasn't true and told Dominique, just come to bed. So Dominique pretended that she was going to go to bed with him. But then she went to the bathroom and she snuck out the bathroom window. When John heard the sound of the car engine start up, he ran out to the driveway and jumped on the hood of the car. And Dominique drove away.
This guy is fucking unhinged.
Unhinged. So Dominique stayed with her mom for a couple of days and then with some friends. And then she broke up with John over the phone. And once he was gone from their house, she moved back into the house and had the locks changed.
Mm-hmm.
On October 30th, Dominique was at home running lines for a new TV miniseries, V. Do you remember that show?
I don't remember that. Did you watch it?
No, I never watched it, but it was a big deal when it came out. And she was rehearsing with one of her co-stars at David Packer. So she got a phone call from a friend of hers. And in the middle of the phone call, the operator broke through the call at the request of John.
God, that was a thing that you could do. Interrupt a call.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
Dominique told her friend, oh, God, it's Sweeney. Let me get him off the phone. But 10 minutes later, John was at the door begging for Dominique to come out and talk to him.
Mm-hmm.
So she did. David stayed inside. Later, he would tell police that he heard smacking sounds, 2 screams, and a thud. He was concerned and called the police, but was told that Dominique's house was out of their jurisdiction.
What? It's supposed to just sync you up with the dispatch that is your jurisdiction.
Well, it's 1982, so I'm wondering if 911 was even a thing yet. When did 911 become ubiquitous?
It was the Kitty Genovese case that I think sparred that in the late 60s, early 70s. I think.
Is that the bystander effect?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Huh. Well,
but
so
I don't know that they had a super slick system where it would.
Right.
Okay.
So next he called a friend and told his friend that if he was found dead, John Sweeney was his killer. So David goes out the back door and around to the driveway, and he sees John in the bushes next to the driveway, kneeling over Dominique.
Oh.
John told David to call the police, which I'm guessing he called some other precinct this time, because I don't know, because the police did arrive.
Okay.
And when they did, John put his hands in the air and said, I killed my girlfriend and I tried to kill myself. Dominique was rushed to Cedars-Sinai Hospital, where she would never regain consciousness, and ultimately she would be removed from life support.
Oh.
It was oxygen deprivation that had rendered her brain dead. John's initial charge at the scene was attempted murder, which changed to first-degree murder after Dominique died, to which he would plead not guilty.
Oh, okay.
Ultimately, because it was 1982 and domestic violence victims don't get the justice they fucking deserve, the fact that they had fought a month prior put some culpability on Dominique or something, because at trial, the defense successfully argued there was no premeditation and that John should be considered for either second-degree murder or manslaughter. And the judge agreed.
Oh my God.
And instructed the jury to decide whether it was second-degree murder or manslaughter. And the jury went with guilty of voluntary manslaughter.
No.
So John Sweeney was sentenced to 6 years and he served about 3 of them.
What the fuck? 3 years for killing somebody.
Yeah. And it was like, there was like the beginnings of like, victim, like domestic violence advocacy groups. And they were like picketing hard against this judge and against this trial and against this. There was a lot of outcry about the whole thing. And this could have been its own. Once I went down this rabbit hole, like this could have been its own, like, story for another episode, because there's like a whole bunch in there about the way that they ran the trial and the way that the defense presented it and what the decisions that the judge made about what the defense presented. It was all just like a real miscarriage of justice.
Yeah.
So when filming came around for Poltergeist 2, set 1 year after the first film, like the movie itself was supposed to be 1 year later. The original cast would return minus Dana/Dominique as the oldest Freeling child. There's no explanation in the movie about her absence, but in the original script, it was briefly explained that Dana was away at college and she broke off contact with her family because she thought they were crazy. And I read somewhere that the filmmakers decided to just retire the character out of respect for Dominique's death rather than like find someone else to play Dana.
Yeah, that makes sense. Oh, man.
So in this film, the Freelings live in Arizona. And while they are trying to move on with their lives, an archaeological dig is going on at the site of their old haunted house in California, where a cave is discovered. The evil entity that wanted Carol Ann was actually the spirit of a long-dead apocalyptic cult leader, Reverend Henry Kane. Reverend Kane led his followers through the desert and into the cave because he believed that the end of the world was coming. But then he kept them trapped and captive there to slowly die with him after the day of his prediction came and went. Because he was so deranged and evil, Kane became a monster after death and controls the souls of his followers.
Jeez.
The set of Poltergeist 2 seemed to have some unexplainable troubles. Things slowed to a dead halt when a malfunctioning creature effect they called the vomit monster continuously failed to work, which caused Craig T. Nelson to pretend to throw up a disgusting practical effect for over 10 hours straight.
Oh my God, no. That sounds miserable.
Right? When the director finally decided he'd gotten the shot, the cast and crew went home for the day, and the next morning they discovered that something had damaged the film, making it totally unusable, which meant that Craig had to pretend to throw up all day again.
No.
This was not the only problem on set. The film's big finale was set in the cave, and the set that they built for the cave was small and uncomfortable, so the actors kept hitting their heads on the top of it, and lighting rigs were constantly toppling over. And when Craig complained about the eerie and unsettling vibe of the cave set, Will Sampson, who played a Native American shaman helping the Freelings rid themselves of Reverend Kane, who was actually an experienced shaman in real life, he divined that the negative energy in the cave was coming from the prop skeletons. This was when the cast learned that some of the prop skeletons in Poltergeist 2 were also actually human remains that had been used to deepen the film's realism.
It sounds like it's getting pretty real. We don't need to do that. God.
So Will asked, if he could exorcise the set, and they were like, yeah, go ahead. And when he was done, Craig reported that production issues immediately stopped.
Wow.
Reverend Kane, in human form, who we see show up at the house in Arizona looking for Carol Ann, is played by Julian Beck. Julian had been diagnosed with stomach cancer in 1983 and was basically dying of cancer while filming. His frightening performance seemed to conjure up feelings of dread that the cast and crew alike found deeply unsettling.
Mm-hmm.
Shortly after production wrapped, Julian passed away at the age of 60. His unforgettable portrayal of the creepy Reverend would be his last film role.
Wow.
I found this in an article that said, quote, Julian Beck may have embodied one of the screen's scariest specters, but in real life, he simply loved frightening conservatives. He was an anarchist, a pacifist, and a bisexual who enjoyed an open marriage. He was even a vegan before the term was in vogue.
Oh, wow. Good for you, Julian.
Yeah. And then 1 year after the release of Poltergeist 2, which came out in May of 86, in June of 87, Will Sampson would also pass away. A little over a month after a successful lung transplant at the age of 53.
This was the native shaman?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
He was suffering from malnutrition, a post-operation infection, and kidney failure of a completely unknown cause that lapsed him into a 10-day coma. Will Sampson made his major acting debut as part of the One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest cast in 1975 before going on to star opposite Clint Eastwood in The Outlaw Josie Wales the following year.
Wow.
Craig T. Nelson visited Sampson's grave and recalled an uncanny moment when the oppressive drone of cicadas in the trees suddenly stopped as Nelson spoke aloud to his deceased friend.
Oh.
And I found a little blurb about him in another article. Muskogee Nation actor Will Sampson had halted the production of the 1977 film The White Buffalo because Caucasian actors were cast as Native Americans. He subsequently founded the American Indian Registry for the Performing Arts to support Native performers.
Gosh, so many cool people in this cast.
Mm-hmm.
Dang.
It was near the end of or just after the filming of Poltergeist 2 that Heather O'Rourke, little Carol Ann, would come down with a mysterious illness that would be first diagnosed as Crohn's disease. By the time filming began in the spring of 1987, Heather was experiencing symptoms severe enough to require treatment during parts of filming. By the time filming for Poltergeist 3 began in the spring of 1987, Heather was experiencing symptoms severe enough to require treatment during parts of filming. She was treated with cortisone and sulfa to manage the condition, but this led to facial swelling until she was gradually eased off of cortisone by the fall of 1987. When she fell sick again in January 1988, about a year after the Crohn's disease diagnosis, her doctors initially believed that it was the flu. That illness quickly progressed, though, and after collapsing at home, she suffered her first cardiac arrest en route to the hospital. The doctors managed to revive her, but she suffered cardiac arrest again hours later during an operation to clear a bowel obstruction.
Oh.
Heather didn't make it after the second cardiac arrest and died at just 12 years old.
Oh my God.
It's since been reported that she had congenital stenosis of the intestine, complicated by septic shock, rather than Crohn's disease. Like her original diagnosis from the start was wrong.
What caused that and why was it?
Congenital, isn't that like something you are born with?
Yeah. Oh, poor little thing.
Heather and Zelda were the only two original cast members from Poltergeist 1 that appeared in Poltergeist 3, and it was a flop by all measures, not least of all because Heather's passing made marketing much more difficult for MGM out of fear of them seeming to be like exploiting her death.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Most people don't include this next one, but I'm gonna. Lou Perryman, who played a construction worker that humorously interacts with the Freelings in the first Poltergeist movie, he was also had a role in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Mm-hmm.
He was murdered in 2009 in a random act of violence.
Oh my God.
Seth Christopher Tatum, a young man who had recently been released from prison for robbery, invaded Lou's home out of nowhere for no reason and killed Lou with an axe.
Oh my God.
Tatum later told police he'd gone into the house to steal Lou's car. He pled guilty to murder, receiving a sentence of life in prison in 2011.
Oh my God.
And that is the Poltergeist curse.
Shit, sister. That's a lot. I hate it.
Sorry.
That's okay. I don't think I'll ever watch those movies again.
I almost watched them.
Really?
But then I didn't. Look, I was traumatized by Poltergeist.
Really?
Yeah. And you know what's really funny is because I was reading like just a snippet of like a Medium post, which is basically like a blog or like a blog post, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this person was like, you know, Poltergeist was a Steven Spielberg movie. It was like, it wasn't even really horror. It was like a family film. And I'm like,
what family are you from?
first of all, I was 5 years old when that movie was in theaters. I was probably 6 years old when I saw it. So I was like Carol Ann's age.
Why were you watching Poltergeist at 6?
That's a really great question, Amber, because it was a Steven Spielberg movie. And back then the ratings were fucked up and they probably gave it like a PG or a PG-13. I don't know.
Oh.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like the same reason why, like, we look back on the movies we watched as kids that were made for us as kids, and we're like, that's dark.
Yeah, totally.
That's not for kids.
Yeah. Mm-mm.
Like, I sat Sebastian down one time. He was probably like about 5 years old or something, and we went to watch The Secret of NIMH, and I was like, this is not appropriate. This is scary.
It's spooky. Mm-hmm.
It's spooky. So who knows why I was watching Poltergeist around 6? Because our parents thought it was a family film because it was Steven Spielberg.
And E.T. had just come out, and yeah,
but it scared the fucking shit out of me.
Mm-hmm.
It traumatized me
for sure. Oh,
to this day, it's at the top of my list of scary movies.
Well, now it's at the top of mine, and I will not be watching it anytime soon. I feel like I'm just asking for trouble. Wow.
I mean, if you're into it and you want to be scared, Poltergeist and Poltergeist 2 are both like those two. 3 is objectionably not a good film, but 1 and 2 as a 2 parts of one long story about this family. Yes.
Listen,
they're very good movies.
We host a true crime podcast. I don't need to add to my want to be scared. I've got, I don't need to do that.
Oh my God.
Come on. Wow.
Fair enough, sister. Fair enough.
Thank you
I
for
spooked
that.
you enough
You
as it
did.
is, huh?
Yeah, I've gotten my fill of things that
It's
scare me.
spooky season, so strap in, sister. I've got like 4 more stories to tell you before this month is over.
Okay, good. I'm going to follow suit. So
You are?
I think so. I think I should.
I mean, you can't. There's no requirement. I'm just telling you where I'm at. Like I'm doing me.
You do you,
And-
boo. I did look up today the episode that drops closest to Halloween so that I could be prepared. And I think I have crime for it's going to be
I think
episode.
you need to revisit that. I'm pretty sure I do have crime.
Oh, shit. Well, hold on. Okay, I'll revisit that.
Just double check.
Just a quick little look-see-loo.
Just a little,
Okay.
just to do a double, just dot I's, cross T's. You know what I'm saying?
Fair enough.
Sister, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I love you so much.
I love you so much.
You guys find us on all the things, even though most of those things are going to go away. We keep saying that, but they really are. They really are going to go away. Go join the Patreon. Even if you're freebie, you'll see posts over there. That's where we're putting our pictures and things. You can talk to us over there. If you want to get on the bonus content, it's $5 a month. Everybody, it's like one tier. There's no layers and levels and hierarchies. We have one tier. It's $5 a month. You get a bonus episode every month. You get new episodes drop a day early over there for everybody in the club. And eventually we'll have another virtual wine night and you can get in on that. So yeah, go give us a rating.
On the Apple
you
Podcast,
listen,
preferably, but wherever
especially
you
on Apple
listen.
Podcast, but wherever you listen. But if on the Apple Podcast, you can do a typey.
Typey.
You can, like, like, words.
Yeah.
Say
Send us
nice
an email,
things.
crimewineandchaos@gmail.com. Naomi gets the hate mail. I get the love letters. They go
That's
to the
right.
same inbox.
That's right.
We've got a webpage. You can find us. We're findable.
Find us. We're so findable. We
Mhm.
love you guys. Thank
Love
you for
you.
listening. I love you, sister. That was
So fucking chaotic. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye. Crime, Wine, and Chaos is produced by 8th Direction Records. Artwork by Joshua M. Davis. Music by Paul Abner. If you would like to support the show, you can visit our Patreon page at crimewineandchaos.com/Patreon. Cheers! There it goes. I need to get back on the wine. My speech impediment is flaring up.